Hey guys, this is for all my students. For the 11th graders, this video will lead into another video I want you to watch, and it will actually make some sense to connect these two videos together. But what I want to talk about today is everything going on in our country. Um, I really wish we were together, all of us now, so we could talk about this. um, but I think that I really wanted to kind of use this opportunity to actually tell you some of my feelings about what's going on. And I welcome any comments, questions, or concerns that you guys have. I'm always uh, I'm always open, and really looking forward to hearing from a lot of you. We're in a mess. This year has been awful, right? Like most of us have been in quarantine for months. We've had this killer virus, excuse me, this killer virus that's taken the lives of 100,000 Americans. We have our economy has been decimated by all the closures. Almost 20% unemployment, reaching like Great Depression era levels because so many people are out of work because everything is closed. We're in a real mess, and then to make matters worse, our ugly racial history has reared its head again with these horrible killings. In Georgia, of Ahmaud Arbery, and then of course um, in Minneapolis, with this horrible, vicious killing of Mr. Floyd, and that for all to see. And I think what this has laid bare is the fact that we have, in many ways, a society that is broken and really needs repair in many ways. Racially, of course, this always seems to rear its head continually, but for a lot of Black Americans, this discrimination, being treated differently, is a day-to-day reality, right? The fact that Black men, especially, but not just men, blacks are consistently pulled over when they're driving, or harassed when you're just trying to go about your business, are always suspected of being criminals, of being potentially killed by some random, you know, vigilante, or police officer, anytime someone thinks you're dangerous or suspicious. Um, so this has eerie parallels to things that we have faced before in our country, throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, and we still haven't dealt with this in the way that we should. The fact that the economy has is literally teetering on the verge of collapse, shows just how weak the foundations always have been for a long time. The fact that a pandemic like this and all the necessary closures would, of course, lead to economic problems in the best of times. But the fact it shows how frayed our economic system is, that people lose don't work for a little while, and then are literally on the verge of destitution, can't pay their rent, lose their health insurance. It shows how weak the foundations of our economy really is, even though it seemed like it'd been going well for the past few years. And then we have the political situation. We are hopeless. Well, I won't say that, but we are completely divided, right? Between red and blue states, between the people who hate Donald Trump and the people who support Donald Trump, the Republican Party, which is consistently in support of almost every act of President Trump, the media, the mainstream media, which is not covering a lot of things that we need them to cover, social media, which kind of just exacerbates all our divisions. So basically, um, and then of course we have so many people who were sick, and the fact that COVID has disproportionately impacted minority communities, because so many people who have those essential jobs, they're often low wage jobs, are minority. So we have serious racial problems. We have economic problems. We have political problems, divisions, horrible divisions in our country. And then, of course, all the violence that we've seen in the past few days. So, what can what should we do about all of this? That's certainly what I know a lot of you guys are asking, and I want to tell you that we should not be hopeless because we have gone through difficult times before. When I was so upset about being quarantined all these months, I read the story of a woman who uh, survived the Holocaust and survived the Holocaust by just basically being on the run for 3 days, 3 years, hiding out, trying to make sure that the Germans didn't catch her and her family. And ultimately, they did get some members of her family, but she wound up surviving. And I thought to myself, do I really have a right to complain about being quarantined when this woman faced what she did, 3 years on the run, for her life. We've had slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow. We had horrible divisions in the 1960s, and the challenge that we have is not that whether we're going to get through it, because we will get through it. The violence will end. The looting will stop. The virus will ultimately fade. But what are we going to have as a country after? You know, are we just going to just say, "Whew, that's over," and then just kind of carry on with our business? Or are we going to seize this opportunity of all this unrest, of all the racial problems, political problems, economic problems, and really try to do something to work on it, work on these problems? So instead of being hopeless, and I know so many people probably right now, and so many of you guys watching probably do feel hopeless considering the state of our country. And I won't lie, the country is in a really bad place right now. But we can get through it if we vote for the people who we feel will actually provide us leadership, good leadership. And I don't just mean vote in the federal level. I mean voting on the local level. Local offices are the ones that determine policing policies. So it's important for everyone to vote for their DAs, state legislators, city councilmen. And I know a lot of you guys are too young to vote, but to make sure that you encourage everybody who is eligible to vote, and you can do that. You can do that much more easily now with social media. Let's try to use social media to encourage something good as opposed to exacerbating division. So we can vote. We can remain committed to social justice for everybody. Those demonstrations were an inspiration. The fact that people going out there and protesting for the rights of African Americans and the rights of all Americans to make sure that they are not being abused by the police and make sure that people aren't being killed by the police. Those demonstrations are what makes America, or those people out there demonstrating are what really makes America great. And I encourage people to. I know there are some health considerations now with the demonstrations, with the virus still spreading, but that is the right thing to do: going out and demonstrating, not looting, not committing acts of violence, because a lot of people have hijacked these peaceful demonstrations in order to advance their own agenda, which often has nothing to do with combating police violence. So that's another thing. Don't let the scenes of that violence really let your mind think that that's what the demonstrations are about, because it's not. Those people hijacked those demonstrations for their own purposes, but more peacefully demonstrating for the rights of all Americans is a beautiful thing, and it's what this country is all about. So we have to keep the pressure up. We have to stay engaged politically. We have to speak out when we see wrong being committed, and we have to maintain our hope for a better tomorrow. And because if we don't have that, if we lose the hope for a better tomorrow, then we definitely won't have a better tomorrow. But the Navajo say, hope dies last, and that's absolutely true, because when you have hope, there always is the realistic chance that things will change. So you have to keep your hope about everything, about our future, about your future. And I understand completely that a lot of your lives have been have kind of witnessed a lot of all these problems that we've talked about: the economic problems, the racial problems, the political dysfunction. Your lives have kind of seen so many of the things in our country that not working the way they should. So you have to stay engaged, stay involved, keep speaking out for the things you care about, fighting for not only yourself but fighting for others. That's one of the most important hallmarks of being a good citizen. Not just caring when something affects you, but caring when something affects somebody else. If somebody else is hurting, if somebody else isn't having their rights protected, if somebody else is being abused, then we have to make that our problem too, even if it's not us that's being abused. So those are some thoughts that I have. You have to stay engaged. You can't lose hope. You have to believe that we will have a brighter day tomorrow. Because when the dust clears and the tear gas clears and the protests and the riots stop, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be in this country, and we have to try to make this a country that we all can be proud of. Thank you. I'll be thinking of all of you, and stay safe.